In yesterday's video, we went over the likelihood that if Bitcoin is going to play out a downside move, the high probability time frame for that would be starting within the next 24 hours. And since yesterday's video, in the past 24 hours, we have seen Bitcoin play out a short-term downside move with a low actually just below 61,000 bucks now. So I do want to be following up on that because I'm actually going to be gone for Friday. So I do want to be incorporating a little bit of Friday analysis as well for the close of the weekly for CME and in big 5-day time frame closure today, going over big pivots that, if met, will start to really change things around for me because, as I've been saying on this channel, while Bitcoin is in a short-term / medium-term corrective stance, I still would be long-term looking at this as, likely a value area, to be honest with you. But if some very specific things do happen, especially within the next within tonight's closure or even tomorrow's closure as well, that's going to change things for me, and I'm going to be looking much further to the downside. I think it's less likely to happen, but fair enough. It should be spoken about. So without further ado, we can just jump right into this one. Tomorrow, I'll be flying. I'll be away, going back to Finland for the summer because I'm really, really excited for that and get some fresh air, man. Get some trees in my life. But before that, I do want to go over some Thursday and Friday statistics. Ever since Bitcoin put in the current all-time high on Thursday, the 14th of March, at just below 74,000 bucks, we have seen actually a reversal in these statistics for what days are most likely to close positively and negatively. Ever since the highs were put in for Bitcoin, 3 out of 8 of the total Thursdays since then have closed negatively. If you recall priorly, Thursday was the most likely day to close negatively, basically throughout the full history of Bitcoin, and also especially since the bull market started in 2023. So I do look at that as significant because that's a few months or a couple months of data now. Also of interest is that Friday has actually been the most likely day to close negatively since the all-time highs were put in, with 6 out of 8 Fridays closing negatively, and a lot of those being like some pretty significant downside days, as you can see here with these red vertical bars. So if you recall priorly as well, Friday was actually the most likely day to close positively, which is really fucking interesting, I do think, as we've seen basically reversal of the, of the prior behavior. So if we see that continue, today, Thursday, is it likely going to try for a bounce? Perhaps yes, but it's Friday that you have to be mindful of and watchful of. So as we went over yesterday, if Bitcoin is going to play out downside and there is going to be a real threat of a downside move, it likely does begin within the next 24 hours, which we have seen thus far. So let's now explore the possibilities of that, what we need to see essentially today, because the 5-day is closing today for both CME and spot price action. And the most obvious thing that, if occurred, would make me pretty fucking bearish, honestly, would be if Bitcoin does close below this 30-day 2 level right here, which is currently at 59,000 and about 500. Yeah, 59,500. See Bitcoin close below there by end of day in the next 14 hours, 53 minutes and 11 seconds. Big fucking problems. That would at minimum indicate that Bitcoin's very likely to try back down around the $56,000 low. Personally speaking, I do think that would be a setup for Bitcoin going lower overall. I am still biased. Again, if you want my opinion on this, which, maybe do, maybe don't, my opinion is notoriously wrong, which is why I trade statistics and probabilities rather than my fucking opinion. But I don't think that happens. But hey, that means very little. If it happens, it happens, and you will start to see me switch to looking for significantly more downside. On top of that, if we go over here, we can see that the 5-day time frame technically is in a downside setup as of right now, with extreme lows on volatility and the 5-day stochastic oscillator positioned to the downside as long as Bitcoin's below 70,000 bucks. And long term, the range is between 70,000 bucks to the upside versus about, let's just call it 60,000 bucks to the downside. As long as Bitcoin's below between there, or 59.5 to the downside, let's say, nothing really changes. But back above 70, an obvious area to be looking for major continuation to the upside. Below 59.5 on a closing basis, again, not just on a wick basis, but a closing basis. things are going to get probably going to get a lot more nasty, as this particular setup does have, I believe, an 80% probability, as there's been 10 prior iterations of downside setups, not upside setups, but downside setups throughout Bitcoin's history, with 8 of those working out, and those have had an average move of like, I think, mid 30%. So that would imply Bitcoin back down around very low $50,000, maybe very high $40,000 if it does occur. I would not, however, look for that to happen, again, as long as this condition is met over here. So that is a very specific condition that if met tonight, yeah, I'd turn very fucking bearish. Just if Bitcoin does close above it, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm like bullish exactly from this, from that moment. It's just it keeps the hopium alive for the boo laws. Realistically, the next sort of tangible thing, or the closest tangible thing for the boo laws, would be closing the weekly on spot price action above $63,000. That would be the next sort of tangible thing to suggest that this is extremely likely to be the next higher low. Anyways, from there, I should also denote that as you can see very likely on the board, ever since 2023, the beginning of this bull market, all of these tests down to this yellow moving average, which is a 21 exponential moving average on the 5-day time frame, have been at higher lows. And that is where Bitcoin is kind of oscillating at right now. Have we seen some closure below there? Sure. Yeah, happens. But at the end of the day, not really deviating too much from that number, from that moving average. And ultimately, these were opportunities. So if we are really expecting this market cycle to continue, we'd expect that behavior to continue as well. If Bitcoin does start to close below there, which obviously if it does close below 59,500, it certainly would exceed that, then yeah, I would be looking towards low 50s or upper 40s. Until that happens, however, I am looking at this as long-term opportunity areas, which, these are all just probabilistic setups. I mean, at the end of the day, anything can happen. It's about knowing where these specific pivot points are that actually change things. Anyways, moving on from there, is there anything else that I want to be speaking about? Just looking at my other things over here. I do want to say that for the people in the Krown Quant automation, I'm working on this setup over here with the new indicator, the trend wave, which you have access to. And if you don't have access to, just email elsa.crowntrading@outlook.com. Fucking mouthful there. With trend wave as the headline, and then send her a receipt of your Krown Quant automation. And your trading view username would also be helpful. And I believe I'm finally cracking the code here, as we're starting to get some pretty damn good long-term results on this one. So I'm working more and more on this. I'll probably post this one early next week, but like I said, I'm traveling, so we'll see what time allows for. But yeah, I think that this is going to be just the next sort of probably the best thing that I have for trend right now. Anyways, I'm getting besides the point and getting long in the mouth here as well. So I think we'll just end things on that note. Again, today, probably a good day for an attempt for a bounce, or at least like a moveless day. Actually, the last 2/3 has been some pretty nice bounces, or they have actually marked off lows. In fact, now that I look at it, the last 1, 2. This was not a low. Of the last 4, 3 of them were actually marking off the lows and like pivots from the lows. So perhaps, I mean, if you are bullish, I guess that would make sense. And then what do you have? You have your inverted herp and derp, which I'm sure is going to be the next sort of hopium on the Twitter sphere, which, fair enough. Got a neckline somewhere around 65,500, kind of the same area as before. If we were to see a move back above there, that's, or sorry, not necessarily move, but a closure back above there, that would also be pretty damn good and confirming upside, extremely likely, with an implied target actually back around basically all-time highs at $73,500. So one thing before the next, as you can see, Friday is really the focus of today's video. Keep your eyes on 59,500. That is where bearish, major bearish confirmations start to happen with much lower prices implied. Until then, hopium still is alive. And I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off. As always, I want to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Saturday.